He Ako Kaha Mora Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanata Kaha Mora Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanata Kaha Dasa Raghunatha Patita Gauranga Gunera Nidhi Kothagile Pabo Gauranga Gunera Nidhi Kothagile Pabo Sheshava Shangira Shange Je Koilo Bilas Sheshava Shangira Shange Je Koilo Bilas Shri Sangha na paya kande Narottama Das. Shri Sangha na paya kande Narottama Das. Jaya Nila Premadhana Karuna Pracho Jaya Nila Premadhana Karuna Pracho He na Prabhu Kothagila Acharya Thakur He na Prabhu Kothagila Acharya Thakur Srila Baladeva Vidyabushana ki jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishthang Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakara Mahyam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitang Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Pada, Krishna Krishna. Okay, so as I was saying before, today we're celebrating the disappearance of Srila Baladeva Vidyabushana, the appearance day of Srimati Ganga Mata Goswamini, and also Ganga Puja. And first, I'll talk about Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushan. This is a very prominent acharya in our Gaudiya Vaishnava disciplic succession. He's considered to be one of our modern acharyas because he is adventing his pastimes after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's performed his pastimes, and also many of his associates, or all of his associates, had left this world by that point. He appeared in this world in Orissa in the early 18th century. There's not a bunch of information about his personal life because he didn't really write so much about himself, but according to different devotees and different historians and everything, he was he appeared in a village in Orissa in a family of merchants and a family of Vaishyas, but because he was Brahminically inclined from a young age, he was educated in things like grammar, like Sanskrit grammar and logic, and also different shastras, and he was naturally attracted to the Tattvavad philosophy of the Madhva Sampradaya. And whenever he completed his studies at a young age, he did a lot of traveling to different holy places in India, and at a young age he took sannyas in the Madhva Sampradaya. So he never was married, and he was a lifelong celibate, and he like I said, he was following in the Madhva line, and he was traveling and preaching, and he found himself in Puri, where there is like a hub of lots of scholars, lots of people who are very learned in shastras and different philosophies and things like that. And so he would travel to different places in India and try to establish the Tattvavad conclusion of Madhva in various places. So he decided to go to Puri to establish this and refute some of the other scholars that were there at that time. And at that time, he met a um, a disciple of Rasika Ananda, who is a disciple of Shyamananda Pandit, who is a very big acharya in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so this Radha Damodar Dev Goswami was a disciple of Rasikananda, and Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan. He decided um, to kind of argue his point of Tattvavad over this Gaudiya Vaishnava. But in this course, in this discussion, the supremacy of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva was revealed to him, and he accepted it as the highest thing. And very soon after that, he received mantra diksha from this Damodar Dev Goswami, and was formerly initiated into this line of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which was very surprising for a lot of people at that time, because he was such like a big scholar, and Gaudiya Vaishnavism wasn't exactly respected in the scholarly sphere of things. So, but shortly after, converting to this Gaudiya understanding of Siddhanta based on the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedanta Sutra and everything, he moved to Vrindavan and started studying under Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was another prominent acharya in our line. And under him, he was studying the literatures of the Goswamis, specifically of Jiva Goswami and his Satsandarbha. And he spent some time there deeply studying the writings of the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. And while he was studying there and serving under Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there was a king in Jaipur, which is not super far from Vrindavan, who was a Gaudiya Vaishnava. He was initiated in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, and the temples in the Jaipur area were being run by Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But at this time, the Sri Vaishnavas started to argue that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas weren't actually performing deity worship according to Shastra, and that their whole philosophy was not bona fide because they didn't have their own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So this was the king of the king of Jaipur, who was a Gaudiya Vaishnava. He sent word to Vrindavan, where there was lots of Gaudiya Vaishnava scholars, sannyasis, and things like this, and he sent word there that this was happening. In the meantime, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas were suspended from worshiping the deities there and from doing any activities. But the word got to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but he was too old to travel down there. He was getting very old at that time. But he sent his very qualified disciple, Srila Baladev Vidyabushana, who went to Jaipur and preached very strongly the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and established that the worship of specifically they were arguing that Radha is not mentioned in the Shastras to be worshipped alongside of Govinda and Gopinath. So he established that this is a bona fide method of deity worship, and he also established the point that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made, that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Therefore, the Gaudiyas, they don't see any need of having a separate commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Nonetheless, no matter what he would say, nobody really would respect the conclusion that he was presenting. So he ended up having a dream right after that, where Krishna came to him personally and said that he ordered him to write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And he said that I will dictate to you what to write, and then whatever you write, it will it cannot be protested. Everyone will accept what you write. So very soon after that, he presented this this commentary on the Vedanta Sutra to the assembly of Sri Vaishnavas, who were completely, appalled, or not appalled, but completely amazed to see that this commentary, which was completely according to Shastra and completely bona fide, and coming from the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this was called the Govinda Bhashya, which is still a very prominent literature studied by Gaudiya Vaishnavas today, and a lot of Prabhupada's books are, in his commentaries, they're following in a very similar format with the same conclusions and everything. So in that way, he established Gaudiya Vaishnavism as being a bona fide sampradaya in this area of India at that time, and he established the worship of Sri Sri Radha Govinda Radha Gopinath, and he also presented his first commentary that he wrote. Before then, he was studying lots of commentaries and lots of literatures written by the Goswamis, but he hadn't written so many things. And then after, that was the first thing that he wrote, and then after that, he's written so many other things. And there's a very long list of everything that he's written. But soon after that, after kind of more or less defeating the Sri Vaishnavas in Jaipur, he was given the name Vidyabushana. Before he was just known as Baladeva. And this Vidyabushana means one who is ornamented with knowledge. So he was a very scholarly devotee who was preaching the message of Krishna consciousness in very learned spheres of society, and through his writings in Sanskrit. And like I said, he started writing many commentaries on the Upanishads, on the Bhagavad Gita, on the Srimad Bhagavatam, and et cetera. And because of this, because he was establishing the philosophy so firmly in this area, many of the Sri Vaishnavas approached him and wanted to take shelter of him and take initiation from him, and basically convert themselves from Sri Vaishnavism to Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But he wouldn't accept any of these followers of Ramanuja, because he explained to them that actually you are following in a bona fide sampradaya, and in order not to discredit the Sri Vaishnava sampradaya, he didn't accept any of their appeals to him to accept them as his disciples. So he was also very respectful to the Sri Vaishnava sampradaya, despite some apparent differences in understanding of philosophy and things like this. And this is probably the most prominent case of Srila Baladeva Vidyabushana preaching firmly in Krishna consciousness. There's not like a whole lot, like I was saying, there's not a whole lot of like historical things that I could find about him, just simply because he didn't write so much about himself, and he wrote a lot about Krishna, and there's so many different things that he wrote about. And like I was saying, he's a very prominent acharya, and Srila Prabhupada writes about him a lot in his books, and especially in the Bhagavad Gita as it is. The first thing that you see whenever you open up the book is dedicated to Srila Baladeva Vidyabushana, who presented so nicely the Govinda Bhashya commentary on Vedanta philosophy. So all of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, all of these books that are being distributed, and all of these, all of this is, Srila Prabhupada actually dedicated all of this to Srila Baladeva Vidyabushana. And Srila Prabhupada wrote a lot about him, and he's one of the most prominent acharyas in this aspect of book writing, writing books and distributing books and things like this. So in this way, he's we can think of Srila Baladeva Vidyabushana in this light of book distribution and book publication and things like this. That was his main service to his spiritual master. That was his main service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one day, according to one's qualification, they can try to read some of these commentaries. But actually, all of these commentaries are also found in Srila Prabhupada's books. So yeah, that's Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushan. Like I said, I couldn't find a ton of information about him. If anybody else has any bits of knowledge about him or anything, we could discuss about him more, or any questions as well. Anything? No. Nothing. So in that case, we can move on. Today is also the appearance day of Srimati Ganga Mata Goswamini, who by her name you can understand is a woman and is also an acharya in the disciplic succession of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And she appeared in a place called Puntia, Rajasahi in what is now known as Bangladesh. And originally she was known as Shachi, which is also the name of Lord Chaitanya's mother. And she was the only daughter of this king called Naresha Narayana Raj, who was the king of this area in Bengal. And it seemed like he didn't have any sons or anything else. Anyways, I'll talk about that a little more later. But she was educated in grammar and poetry and various devotional scriptures from a very young age, and she exhibited all of the qualities of a great saintly personality from a young age. And specifically, she was very detached. Even though she was born in like a royal family, she was very detached from like all these material things like wealth and land and beautiful clothing and things like this. And specifically, she vowed from a very young age that she would never marry a mortal man in this world. That her heart actually belonged to Madana Gopala, who is the transcendental Cupid, which steals the hearts of the devotees. So from a very young age, she was completely chaste to Lord Krishna, to the devotional service of Lord Krishna. And her parents were so disturbed by the fact that she wouldn't marry anyone that they left their bodies when she was like pretty young, and which left her to basically rule this kingdom. And she was entrusted with like a lot of royal duties. And but because she was not so interested in material life, she kind of passed on all these responsibilities to various relatives. And then she started traveling in India, going to different holy places, specifically Jagannath Puri, and then she found herself at Vrindavan eventually. And in Vrindavan, she met a devotee named Haridas Pandit, who was a disciple of Ananta Acharya, who is a disciple of Advaita Acharya. And she started hearing his discourses on Srimad Bhagavatam, and she started to take shelter of him and take instruction from him. But he instructed her that that doing bhajan in Vrindavan is not a suitable thing for a woman to do, that she should go back home and do her, get married and do her bhajan at home, live a normal life. But that's one thing that she just could not accept. So she didn't follow that instruction by Haridas Pandit. She stayed in Vrindavan, and she started wearing very simple clothing, like tattered cloth, and she wouldn't wear any jewelry or ornaments or anything like this. And she was engaging in very, very intense sadhana, doing lots of japa and doing like parikrama and cleaning temples and attending arati ceremonies and things like this. And whenever Haridas Pandit saw that she was determined in this way to remain in Vrindavan and to do her devotional service in Vrindavan, he said, okay, you can stay in Vrindavan, but you have to do this madhukari style of begging, and which means basically you have a pot, like a begging pot, and you go around and you take. It's like madhukari is also a word for like a honeybee, right? So basically, you go around like a honeybee, and a honeybee doesn't take all of the pollen from each flower it goes to. It just takes a little bit, and in this way, it collects just enough that it needs. And so the madhukari sadhu, the madhukari saintly person, they go around with a pot and just collect whatever they need from various people. They don't. And then another thing is that they don't visit the same people all the time, knowing that these are the types of people that will give them donations or give them food. They go to everybody. They go door to door and things like this. So she was doing this style of begging in Vrindavan while, following very, very strict devotional principles. And another, in due course of time, she received Diksha from this Haridas Pandit. And soon after that, another female disciple of Haridas Pandit, Lakshmi Priya, came to Vrindavan, and then her, Ganga Mata and Lakshmi Priya, they both engaged very heavily in devotional service together. They were residing on the over by Radha Kund and doing lots and lots of japa. It said that they were chanting 3 lakhs of holy names a day, which I think is 1 lakh is like 64 rounds. So like Haridas Thakur chanted the same amount. Yeah, so they were chanting a lot of Hare Krishna in Vrindavan together. And but that wasn't it. She was recommended by her guru to move to Puri, Jagannath Puri, and preach devotional service there. So she moved there, and then she started to inhabit the dilapidated house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who, was defeated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu back in Gaura Leela. Anyways, that's a whole other story. But she was residing in his dilapidated house that was not being maintained. And from what I read, it seemed like his Damodar Shalagram Shila was left behind there. And she reestablished worship of this Shaligram Shila. And she started to recite Bhagavatam there in Puri. And she became renowned as a great reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam, and she would give Bhagavatam class and things like that every day in Jagannath Puri. And then the king of Puri at that time heard of this and started to attend some of her Bhagavatam recitations, and then he felt a desire to donate to her some land near Shweta Ganga, which I forgot to look up. Do you know what Shweta Ganga is? Seems like some kind of seems like some kind of bathing ghat in Jagannath Puri, which is the Ganga does not go through Jagannath Puri, but is a place called Shweta Ganga, and he donated. So the king donated her some land right over there, and then she established a monastery over there, where she was, doing her Bhagavatam recitations, and there was other devotees who were living there and doing service and things like that. And one day, on a very auspicious day, she had the desire to go to bathe in the Ganga, but because she had vowed to just stay in Puri and preach there, she decided not to go. But the Lord appeared in her dreams saying that, in order to fulfill this desire that you have to bathe in the Ganga, I will personally bring the Ganga to this Shweta Ganga where she was residing by. And then on a night, I forget exactly which night it was. It was like Varuni something. On some auspicious day, she bathed in this Shweta Ganga, and then kind of got like swept away by like the forces of the water, and then like found herself in this like bathing ghat, which was inside of the inner chambers of the Jagannath temple. And she like came out of the water, and she was surrounded by like thousands of devotees doing kirtan, and it was like some like very mystical experience that she had. And then there was like the servants of Jagannath who were living in that temple complex. They heard things going on inside of the temple grounds. So they went in there, and then they saw her all alone in this bathing ghat, and they thought that she was in there trying to like steal the ornaments of Jagannath. So they arrested her. Everybody thought that she was like a rogue who was just like some kind of thief going in there to steal from Jagannath, and she was thrown in jail. Nonetheless, she wasn't disturbed by this. She just continued chanting Hare Krishna and reciting Bhagavatam and everything like that. And then again, Mukunda Dev, the king of Jagannath Puri, he had another dream where Lord Jagannath came personally to him and recommended that he take Diksha from her in order to repent for this great sin of throwing her in prison and misunderstanding her pastimes. So he submitted himself to her, and from that day forward, she became known as Ganga Mata Goswamini. I think before she was just known as Shachi Mata or whatever. And so he submitted himself to her. He took mantra diksha from her. So this is another case of female diksha guru in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and she was highly respected even by the king of Jagannath Puri. And after that occasion, he established a daily donation to her monastery there in Jagannath Puri, where he would send 2 vessels full of Mahaprasad from the Jagannath temple, one vessel of vegetables, and 1 piece of cloth which had been offered to the Lord, and 160 paisi. And these items were sent to her mutt every single day, right after the noon offering, and that custom is still going on today. So I guess there's like still a Ganga Mata mutt there, and they still do this, and she's still highly respected as a great Vaishnava in Puri. So those are the 2 Vaishnava acharyas that have disappeared and appeared today. And then the other thing going on is Ganga Puja, and this is like a whole thing in India. There's like a 10-day festival that goes on from Amavasya, which was 10 days ago, and then this is like the last day, where so many pilgrims go to like different holy places on the banks of the Ganga, and they go and they bathe there, and you can look up videos of Ganga Puja, and like they have I don't know how many guys, like at least like 20, 30 guys like on the banks of the Ganga, and they do like arati simultaneously, and they look like they're doing the exact, the same timing and everything, and it's like very ornate, intricate arati. So that goes on full year round. That goes on year round, but today is a very special day because this is considered to be the day, according to the lunar calendar, that the Ganga descended into this material world. And that's a whole thing. That's why I grabbed the Ramayana, because if you read the Ramayana, there's a whole description whenever Vishwamitra kind of snatches Rama and Lakshman, and they go to what's the Mithila. Mithila is that the kingdom that they were going to? So on the way to Mithila to go to this Swayamvara ceremony, they go to different holy places and stuff, and Lord Rama was asking, "Oh, can you tell some stories of what is this? What is that? What is that?" And in this time, he explains to him the whole story of how the Ganga descended into this material world. And you can read about it in Prabhupada's books. It's also there, but in the Ramayana and the Valmiki Ramayana specifically, there's a section which is narrating this whole story. So it's not that long, so I think I can just read the whole thing. Yeah, it's just a few pages, really. But so it all starts with this king named Sagara, and this king, where does it start? Yeah, so King Sagara was actually one of the kings who was ruling Ayodhya. He was coming in the Ikshvaku line, which is the same line that Lord Rama appeared in, but this was long before even Lord Rama appeared. And anyways, I'll just start reading. So, because Maharaj Sagara was unable to beget a son, he, along with his 2 wives, went to the Himalayas to perform austerities. After some time, the king was benedicted by the great Rishi Bhrigu with the boon that he would receive a son by one wife who would become the perpetuator of his dynasty, while his other wife would give birth to 60,000 more sons. Hearing this, the 2 queens questioned Bhrigu Muni who would receive the one son and who would receive the 60,000 sons. Bhrigu replied that the decision would be left to them. Thus, Keshini, the elder queen, chose to have a single son who would perpetuate the Ikshvaku line. Sumati, the sister of Garuda, chose to have 60,000 sons. Maharaj Sagara returned home, and in due course a son was born to Keshini and given the name Asamanjasa. Sumati, however, gave birth to a lump of flesh shaped like a bitter melon. Everybody seen a bitter melon? It's like a long, like thing like that. So a lump of flesh that looks like a bitter melon. Shortly thereafter, when the lump was opened up, 60,000 embryonic sons emerged. They were immediately placed in jars of ghee by their nurses until they could complete their development. Later, when these 60,000 sons began growing up, their cruel elder stepbrother Asamanjasa began to throw them into the river Sarayu, laughing with great pleasure to see them drown. So all these embryos came out of the bitter melon flesh lump, and then they were placed into vats of ghee so that they could, what's the right word, develop. And then this other son, the son of the elder queen, he started like getting the little babies and throwing them and killing them in this river. So being very aggrieved due to the vicious behavior of his son, Maharaj Sagara finally decided to exile Asamanjasa from his kingdom. Although he kept the son of Asamanjasa, Angshuman, who was loved by all of the subjects. After some time, Maharaj Sagara inaugurated the performance of a horse sacrifice, with Angshuman protecting the challenge horse as it wandered all over the earth. However, during the performance of the sacrifice, King Indra appeared in the guise of a Rakshasa and stole the horse from the sacrificial arena. The priest fervently urged Maharaj Sagara to recover the horse at all cost. He warned that if the sacrifice remained incomplete, it would be most inauspicious. So this is called the Ashwamedha sacrifice that was commonly performed by great kings, specifically like the kings of the whole world, where they would get a horse, and then they would let it wander all over the world, and then wherever it would go, so it was kind of like a challenge where whoever's like the king of that area, if the horse came, then if they surrendered, then it was fine. But sometimes they would challenge it, and then there would be some fighting going on there. And then if the horse goes everywhere and then comes back, then that means that emperor who is performing the sacrifice, he's the emperor of the entire world. So they were doing this Ashwamedha sacrifice, but the horse was stolen by Indra. And sometimes you'll see that Indra gets like a little worried of like human beings trying to take his position as being the king of heaven. So he kind of messes up their austerities or their sacrifices or whatever. So he stole this horse, and nobody knew where it went. So Maharaj Sagara then ordered his 60,000 sons to search the entire earth for the horse, allotting each of them 1 square yojana. He further instructed his sons that if the horse could not be found elsewhere, they should look below the earth. Thus Maharaj Sagara and his grandson Angshuman waited at the sacrificial arena. The 60,000 princes searched the entire earth. When they were unable to find the horse anywhere, the sons of Sagara began digging into the earth. This, however, upset the inhabitants of the lower world, such as the Nagas. Indeed, even the earth herself became extremely disturbed. Seeing this, the demigods approached Lord Brahma and petitioned him to set right the situation. So it was like a really, really intense thing that all 60,000 of the king's sons were searching all of the corners of the earth, and when they couldn't find him anywhere on earth, they started excavating, like a huge excavation project where they were literally going like into the earth searching for this sacrificial horse. So Lord Brahma pacified the demigods, explaining that since the earth was a consort of Lord Vishnu, then surely the Lord in his form of Kapila would soon annihilate all 60,000 sons of Sagara. So even after digging up the earth and killing many living beings in the process, the sons of Sagara could not find the sacrificial horse and thus returned to their father disappointed. When the 60,000 princes inquired from their father what they should do next, the king ordered them to continue digging further down until the horse was found. The sons of Sagara resumed their excavation of all 4 quarters of the earth's surface and soon came to see the 4 colossal elephants that protect the 4 directions and support the earth. These gigantic elephants support the entire weight of the earth upon their backs, and when, due to exhaustion, they sometimes shake their heads for relief, it creates earthquakes. I remember reading, when we first started distributing the Ramayana, I remember reading this section of it and thinking like, wow, like we're really like distributing this like to people, because it's like really far out stuff, the whole like bitter gourd thing, the earth is being held up by gigantic elephants. But anyways, that's what earthquakes are, is the elephants having to readjust and yeah. So finally, after penetrating the earth all the way down to Rasatala, the sons of Sagara came upon Lord Kapila sitting in meditation, while nearby the sacrificial horse stood grazing peacefully. Sagara's sons assumed Kapila to be the thief. Thus they angrily took up their digging implements and rushed to kill him. Seeing this act of aggression, Kapila became angry. He then, simply by uttering the mantra Hum, he reduced the 60,000 sons of Sagara to ashes. So you can read about Lord Kapila in the 3rd canto, right? 3rd canto. Yeah. So this pastime is actually in the 9th canto, but you can get the whole backstory of who Kapila Muni is in the 3rd canto, chapters 21 through 30, something like that. After a long time, when his sons had not returned, Maharaj Sagara sent his grandson Anshuman to search for his 60,000 sons and the sacrificial horse. By following the path his uncles had taken, Anshuman came to the passage excavated by them. After entering the earth, Anshuman came upon the great elephants and inquired from them about the whereabouts of his uncles. In reply, the elephants assured him that by continuing down the passage, he would soon come to know everything. At last, Anshuman reached the place where the ashes of the sons of Sagara lay. Seeing this, he became overwhelmed with grief. Anshuman found the sacrificial horse nearby and decided to first offer water for the departed souls of his uncles before returning to his grandfather. Unfortunately, there was no water to be found in that place. While Anshuman was thinking what to do, Garuda suddenly appeared and said, "My dear Anshuman, do not grieve for your uncles. Their deaths are ultimately meant for achieving a glorious purpose. The sons of King Sagara will be instrumental in bringing the sacred river Ganga down to earth for the welfare of all people. Your uncles were burnt to ashes by the great sage Kapila. When their remains are washed over by the waters of the Ganga, they will attain a heavenly destination. Now take the sacrificial horse and return to your grandfather so that the sacrifice can be completed." With the return of the sacrificial horse, Maharaj Sagara successfully concluded the sacrifice. After hearing from Anshuman the prophetic words of Garuda, the king became absorbed in trying to formulate the means to make the Ganga descend to the earth. However, Maharaj Sagara passed away before achieving that goal. After the death of his grandfather, Anshuman ruled the kingdom for some time. He later gave the throne to his son Dilipa and retired to the forest to perform austerities, hoping to induce Ganga to descend to earth. After his death, Anshuman went to the heavenly planets, but his desire to cause the descent of the Ganga remained unfulfilled. Dilipa also sought to bring Ganga to earth, but he too died before his desire was fulfilled. Dilipa's son Bhagirath then inherited the kingdom and likewise desired to perform austerities to cause Ganga to descend. Since he had no son, Bhagirath entrusted the rule of the kingdom to his ministers and retired to the forest. After Maharaj Bhagirath had performed austerities for 1,000 years, Lord Brahma became pleased with him. Accompanied by the demigods, Lord Brahma appeared before the king to award him a benediction. Maharaj Bhagirath worshipped Lord Brahma and then begged, "Please allow my ancestors, the sons of King Sagara, to receive the water of the Ganga. In addition, kindly benedict me to have a son." Lord Brahma replied, "I agree to award you these benedictions. However, the earth is incapable of bearing the weight of the Ganga's descent. You should request Lord Shiva to absorb the impact of the falling water, for only he is powerful enough to do so." Determined to gain Lord Shiva's favor, Maharaj Bhagirath began performing severe austerities. He stood motionless on the tip of a single toe for 1 year. At that time, Lord Shiva was pleased to appear before the king. When Maharaj Bhagirat expressed his desire, Lord Mahadev agreed to bear the force of the Ganga's falling water upon his head. Soon afterward, the Ganga began to descend toward the earth from her course in the heavenly planets. All the demigods assembled to witness the spectacle. However, when Ganga Devi saw Lord Shiva prepared to take her upon his head, he considered that his contact would contaminate her. Thus, upon seeing the expression of disgust displayed by Ganga Devi, Lord Shiva became insulted. In retaliation, he angrily captured her and concealed her waters within his matted hair, thwarting her descent to earth. When Maharaj Bhagirat saw how Ganga had become entangled, he resumed his austerities. Finally, Lord Shiva gave up his anger and released Ganga Devi, allowing her to fall in the Bindu Sarovara in the Himalayas. Afterwards, the Ganga split into 7 streams. 6 of these formed other rivers, while the 7th followed Maharaj Bhagirat as he rode upon his royal chariot. While winding her in this way, while winding her way through various lands, it so happened that Ganga inundated the sacrificial arena of the great sage Janu. Becoming excited with rage, the rishi swallowed up the entire river. Upon seeing this, the demigods were struck with wonder. They then approached Janu and requested him to release Ganga Devi on the condition that she would become known as his daughter. The rishi agreed, and thus the Ganga was able to continue her journey. Finally, the Ganga reached the site that had been excavated by the sons of Sagara. By entering that great crevasse, the Ganga went down to Rasatala. In doing so, she submerged the ashes of Sagara's 60,000 sons, enabling them to reach their heavenly destination. Lord Brahma appeared once more before Maharaj Bhagirat and declared, "O king, your mission has now been accomplished. From this time forward, the Ganga shall be known as your daughter, Bhagirathi." After thus delivering his forefathers, Maharaj Bhagirat returned to his capital and resumed ruling over his kingdom. Thus the entire night passed away as Vishwamitra narrated to Rama the fascinating history of the river Ganga and her descent to earth. So that is how the Ganga descended to this planet Earth. Before then, she was in the heavenly planets, but this specifically conjured her to come down to the earthly realm and also into the subterranean realm. This is like we were saying. This is described in the Bhagavatam in various sections, and you can read in the this is how the Ganga came to the planet Earth. But like I was saying, the Ganga was existing in the heavenly planets before then, and that was whenever Lord Vamana pierced through the coverings of the material world with his toe, which enabled the Vaitarani river, the Viraja river, to flow into this world. And then there in the heavenly planets, the Ganga is, what is it called? Where Nalakuvara and Manigriva were sporting that night. Not Manasi Ganga. Anyways, Manasarovara is where the Ganga falls on earth, I think. Or no, Manasarovara. There's a specific name for the Ganga in the heavenly planets. Anyways, it's talked about in that whole passage. Mitraman, do you know what the Ganga is called in the heavenly planets? No. There's like a celestial Ganga. And as it was saying in the Ramayana, whenever it comes to earth, it splits in 7 different streams. And if you go to India, you can follow the whole path of the Ganga, and then along the path there's many branches. One of them is the Yamuna, but it's so from the pastimes of Lord Vamana, we can understand that the Ganga has washed the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, and that is what makes it so incredibly purifying. And then as it goes in this material world, all of the places that are touched by the Ganga are ultimately considered to be places of pilgrimage. And so many places along the Ganga in India, there's so many different holy places like that. And specifically in Mayapur, Navadvip Mayapur, that is where the Ganga is flowing through West Bengal and then eventually going out to the Pacific Ocean, I guess, to the Bay of Bengal. And then that is, of course, where Lord Chaitanya performed many sporting pastimes in the Ganga. Mandakini is Mandakini Ganga. But anyways, yeah. Yeah, so Lord Chaitanya, as Nimai Pandit, he would study, he would have his students, and he would teach grammar to them, and then at noontime they would all go to the Ganga, and he was known for being very, what's the right word? He would bash all the other scholars that would go there to bathe, and he would harass everybody, and they would have a good time there. And so the Ganga is very special as far as like this Gora Lila, whereas in Krishna Lila, the Yamuna, which is also a manifestation of Ganga, is more emphasized. But there's many places in the Bhagavatam where this is described. You have in the 5th canto, where there's a whole description of like the material world basically. And if I remember correctly, it talks about how the Ganga descends from the heavenly, it descends from the spiritual world ultimately, and then it goes down to Brahmaloka and then heavenly planets, and then it falls on top of Mount Meru. And then from Mount Meru, it flows in 4 different directions. So Mount Meru is like in the center of this like Jambudweep, and then it falls in 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. And then I'm pretty sure this Bharatavarsha is like south of Mount Meru. So the southern course of the Ganga then goes to like what is it, Himakut, I think, or whatever, which is just like Himalaya, the Himalayan mountains, and then it flows down, and then you can see, and then according to like mundane vision, the Ganga originates in the Himalayan mountains due to like the melting of glaciers or something up there, and you can like go up there, and there's, what do they call that? The place of the origin of the Ganga. Anyways, you can look it up. There's actually a video on like Krishna Tube all about the Ganga. You've probably seen it, haven't you? There's a whole documentary. So anyways, according to mundane vision, it looks like the Ganga is just a regular river which is happening because of some melting glaciers. But we can understand it that it's actually coming from the feet of Lord Vishnu. Gangotri. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, and in that way it's going down, and you can you can look at a map and you can see where the Ganga is going, and all of these places are considered holy places. And then, certain people think that like the whole area of like Bangladesh is like very like unholy because the Ganga avoids that place, and the Pandavas didn't travel there, and things like this. But anyways, so that is the Ganga. There's lots of different things that you can talk about with the Ganga. There's many times in Prabhupada's books where it's talked about. But ultimately, we can take shelter of Ganga to become purified and take her association to become a nice, pure devotee of the Lord. And many people, they bathe in the Ganga for material purposes. They want to get freed from like sins so that they don't have to experience their bad karma, and that they can continue to enjoy in this material world. But we should take shelter of the Ganga, and we should want to be purified by the Ganga so that we are qualified servants of the Lord. And also we should remember the Lord's pastimes sporting in the Ganga. And yeah, Alaknanda. Anyways, that's all from me. If there's any questions or comments about Ganga Mata Goswamini or Ganga Devi, then we can take those. I know that Vishnu Mahosa have something on the phone. Is anybody in touch with them on the phone? First, does anybody here have anything? Yes, Kalki Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just a couple small things. So one thing is, I forget the name of the son, but Sagara's son, the one son that he had, what was his name? Ashu, was it Ashu?
The one that he exiled?
Yeah.
It was like Anjusana. Let me see.
But that son, I think it's mentioned in Ramayana, maybe in the Bhagavatam also. But that son, I believe, was a devotee. But anyways, he killed all those people or whatever, and then he brought them back to life once he was exiled. and then he left.
Oh, I see.
He did that because he didn't want to like rule the kingdom and get involved in all that stuff. So he like did that, and then left.
Oh, I see.
And
Yeah.
then they realized that like afterwards that like he was
So those details are in the Valmiki Ramayana.
yeah, I
that
remember
you're
reading that in there, and I think
His
something.
name is Asamanjasa.
Yeah, and I think something's mentioned in the Bhagavatam also. They're like sometimes with different Puranas and things, and like the text, they like mention one detail and leave out another, and then you kind of
Right.
like collaborate them together. And then the other thing is, what was it? So with the Ashvamedha, it's just some small detail. I mean, there's so many details to that. So like that horse, when it would wander, it would be accompanied by like so many Brahmins and so many Kshatriyas, because it's just like, can't just like wander back. So they would like do that for like a year and just like accompany that horse. So it just like, it was like protecting everything. But then Indra, we know he has that ability to like go invisible. So like,
Yeah,
then he was
yeah.
able to
It said
steal
that
it.
he was in the disguise of a Rakshasa whenever he took
Yeah.
it.
So he's able to take it from them because they were trying to protect it. The other thing too is just you were just talking about like I mean we're the descent of the Ganges and things, and it seems like magical and mystical and like it's like very far out. But one thing is that still today, but in previous times, those were the kind of things that the British like they really went at just to like show like how inferior like Vedic culture is in comparison to like this demoniac whatever British culture or Anglo-Saxon. So, but these things, it's like one important thing to understand is that I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but just like how like things functioned in previous times are like completely different into like how reality is now. Just how like the earth produces and how people grew and all those things is just like the whole like nature of like I don't even know the right word for it, but just like reality is just like completely different. And so, but like for those that like grow up like in like that environment and that surrounding, I mean, they're just like used to it and they have that understanding of how things are. We read so many different things like that, like the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and these histories of like great rishis and sages. So, so those things are amazing, but that's we may not understand them completely, but it's the only way to actually understand those things isn't like through intellectual ability, it's through purity. That those things were revealed and how we understand them. But anyways, I was just mentioning that slightly, not to get all into that.
Yeah, yeah.
But that the Vedic text is right, and some devotees have to like take that up and preach that and hold that, because otherwise, with just like Guru Maharaj gave that class recently about like the Big Bang. It's like that's the alternative, is that there was nothing, there was something. So these people too, they put forward their stupid nonsensical ideas. So we don't have to subscribe to those. We should stick to the true Vedic message. So is someone called Vishnu or?
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay. 1 second. All right. So, Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yeah, we hear you, Prabhu.
Okay. So, some more interesting things about Ganga Mata Goswamini. So there's a story of how there's a devoted and religious Brahmana in the name of Chandra Sharma in Jaipur, and he had a deity named Rasika Rai. Some call it Shama Rai, and he was very poor and he couldn't offer foodstuffs properly to the deity. So one night Jagannath appears to him in a dream and says that you should take this Rasika Rai, who's present in your house, who you're not able to worship properly. You should take him to Jagannath Puri, Sri Kshetra Puri, and give him to Ganga Mata Goswami, who resides on the banks of Shweta Ganga. Otherwise, some misfortune will befall you. That's a long way to traverse by foot. Jaipur is on the west of India, and Jagannath Puri is on the east coast. So this Brahmana had to carry that deity and go. So the Brahmana, immediately having received the order, didn't delay and immediately set out for Sri Kshetra. And then he inquired about the whereabouts of Ganga Mata Goswamini and then found her and presented to her this deity. Seeing the deity, Ganga Mata became very happy, but when the Brahmana explained why he came, she said, but I'm also only a beggar. I eat by begging at a few houses. She used to just beg at a few houses and honor or collect some foodstuffs and then eat that. And she's saying, how will I be able to serve this deity? So you better take the deity with you because I don't want to become an offender. So the Brahmana didn't know what to do, and then because he didn't want to take the deity because he was ordered by Jagannath, he left the deity in the Tulsi garden at the bank of Shweta Ganga. So then Rasika Rai appears that night in a dream to Ganga Mata Goswamini and says, I've come here to accept your service. That Brahmana put me in your Tulsi garden and left this place. I haven't eaten anything for a whole day. Please feed me. Ganga Mata was struck with wonder. The Supreme Lord Hari himself is asking me to feed him. Meditating on this, she became filled with ecstatic love. The hairs on her body stood on end. She quickly took bath and entered the Tulsi garden. There she saw Sri Rasika Rai shining in his own effulgence. With her eyes full of tears, she fell down and offered her prostrated obeisances. Here he is, she thought joyfully, still hungry. She picked him up and carried him to her room, feeling very doubtful as to what she should do. Finally, she bathed him and made him a simple offering of foodstuffs. Rasika Rai immediately ate everything. Ganga Mata was floating in an ocean of happiness. She spread out a new piece of cloth and laid him down to rest. In the morning, when the devotees came to Ganga Mata's house, they were astonished to see Rasika Rai. When they heard the details of what happened, they all cheered and chanted Hari Hari. Every day, Sri Ganga Mata would lovingly prepare many varieties of vegetables and cakes and offer to Sri Rasika Rai. She would spend at least 12 hours every day serving her deities. For some days, she served Sri Rasika Rai by begging at people's houses, but as she gone on the years, this became somewhat difficult for her. Noting this, Sri Rasika Rai, by some trick or other, would collect the necessary ingredients and paraphernalia from rich merchants. So she was so advanced that Sri Rasika Rai and her were enjoying this loving exchange where the deity of Krishna was very, very eager to eat foodstuffs that were cooked by Ganga Mata. And but when Ganga Mata saw that there were many deficiencies in the worship due to her advanced age, she went before Rasika Rai to pray for his forgiveness. She did not, and that she was unable to serve him nicely anymore. For this reason, she did not want to remain alive any longer. Sri Rasika Rai told her in a dream, I am very pleased with your service. You shouldn't lament. Just for a few days, continue to serve me. Some days passed, but she again told him that she did not want to remain any longer. Sri Rasika Rai, and that her only request was that she would leave this world while chanting his holy name. Sri Rasika Rai replied, all right, don't worry anymore. After handing over my service to one of your qualified disciples, you should come and join me in my eternal abode. Thereafter, she entrusted the worship of Rasika Rai to one peaceful and controlled disciple of hers called Vanamali Das. At the age of 120 years, in the year 1721 AD, on the 11th day of the bright fortnight of the month of Ashwin, Sri Ganga Mata Goswamini, while seeing the graceful three-bending form of Sri Rasika Rai, meditating upon his lotus feet, while chanting the holy name, entered into his eternal pastimes. She appeared in the year 1601 AD. So that deity of Rasika Rai, along with the Shalagram of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Damodar Shalagram of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, is present at that right next to Shweta Ganga. There is a temple, and there's also the Samadhi of Ganga Mata Goswamini. And it is to that Samadhi of Ganga Mata Goswamini that this prasadam from the temple, along with whatever small quantity of money is being brought every day to Ganga Mata Goswamini's Samadhi, and that land adjacent to Shweta Ganga is the place where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house formerly was.
Mm.
So, and then there's at the location of that place, it is said that the pond adjacent to the mutt. So this is written on a signboard at that location. Ganga Mata Mutt, Sri Kshetra Heritage Site. The pond adjacent to the mutt is called Shweta Ganga, where devotees take a holy dip. History reveals. So according to that sign, the Ganga Mata established this mutt to be headed by women only. And history reveals that this mutt once, seems after several years, was serving as a center for revolutionary activities against the British rule organized by Rajguru. The mutt has a secret underground tunnel which is yet to be explored. Some information.
Jai.
Those are my comments. Oh, and by the it was my mistake that. So what is Alakananda? So Ganga basically splits into four. So Mandakini, when Ganga from the heavenly planets is Mandakini, falls on top of Mount Meru, in the middle of Brahmapuri, which is Brahma's vacation, town, city. That's his holiday home. And she splits into four, known as Sita, Alaknanda, Chakshu, and Bhadra. And so Alaknanda flows south and then falls off Mount Meru and then accumulates on top of the Himalayas and then flows as Alaknanda next to, comes as Gangotri and then flows right next to Badrikashram in Badrinath, and then flows down and becomes Ganga in Bharatavarsha. So Ganga actually flows as four rivers on Jambu Dweep. We're on the south, so she comes down as Alaknanda here.
Jai. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, and then Mahotsa Prabhu has something? Yeah. According to some signboard at that place, she established it as a mud only for women. And did I hear correctly that she lived for 120 something years? Yeah. That's pretty far out.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you're audible.
Maybe widows, I don't know.
Okay. Is anyone connected to the TV? Is anyone air playing something?
Yes.
Can you all see? Is someone's phone connected to the TV? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Could you please pull up Canto 8, chapter 21, verse number 4?
8:21.
I was saying today is the appearance of Ganga in this world, So this is really ecstatic purport that Srila Prabhupada writes. He says, here we understand that the Ganga...
What's the verse, Prabhu?
8:21:4.
We're still pulling it up.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Ready?
Say yes.
Yes.
This is purport. Here we can understand that the Ganges began when the water from Lord Brahma's Kamandalu washed the lotus feet of Lord Vamanadev. But in the 5th canto, it is stated that the Ganges began when Vamanadev's foot pierced the covering of the universe so that the transcendental water of the causal ocean leaked through. And elsewhere, it is also stated, the Lord Narayana appeared as the water of the Ganges. Therefore, the water of the Ganges is a combination of 3 transcendental waters. And thus the Ganges is available to purify the 3 worlds. This is a description given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. I thought it's a very ecstatic purport, Very well. The Ganga is so amazing. I just wanted to share that. That's all.
Yeah, that is amazing.
What did you say?
I said yes. That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways,
Hare Krishna.
there's so many things about Ganga that I don't know about. The more I was looking on the internet, the more I was realizing that there's like so much, and then like every place where the Ganga is flowing through, there's like local. What do they call that? The local like Puranas, or what are they called? No, 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 no. Like if you go to like a holy place, then they have their own like kind of like legends and stuff that they'll tell and stuff like that, and like all these different places, like the Ganga, and she appears many times as like a person, like in her personal form, and she's the mother of Bhishma Dev, and like this and like that. So, and she's also known by many names as well. Like we were hearing Bhagirathi and also Janavi because of King Janu. But anyways, it's an interesting thing. There is a this documentary. I think it was made by devotees that is on Krishna Tube. If anybody wants to like learn more about it. But okay, that's it. Anybody else? Okay, Srila Baladeva Vidyabushana ki.